Welcome to the Loaded Goat. I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris.
How you doing, Chris?
I am good. It's just America,
Love it or die.
Love it or die.
There was a Mad magazine one time, and it had this bump. They were like crazy bumper stickers, and it was somebody that said, "America, love it or die."
That's funny.
So today we're doing Hot Rod Otis. What'd you think of this episode, Christopher?
It was fun.
Yeah,
well, didn't blow my mind, but I enjoyed it.
It was actually one where, we always joke that the show always basically made Otis's alcoholism just to be a funny quirk. And you knew that Otis had problems, but it just always joked about it. And but you are kind of like, you get to this episode and you're like, oh yeah, that we do have standards. He shouldn't be driving a car if he's going to drink like this.
Yeah, but a little bit later we can talk about this later. I was a little worried about how Andy and Barney were going to teach him a lesson.
It was funny. I hadn't seen this one in a little while, and I was wondering. I was like, I can't remember what the lesson is. So yeah, that was fun. So the episode first, and we'll talk. And when we get to that lesson, I want to hear what you thought the lesson might have been.
What I would have done,
or what you thought they might have done. So this episode first aired on February 17th, 1964, and we open with Barney and Andy playing gin rummy. Andy is whistling. Barney is losing. He's getting annoyed, but then he starts whistling too. And then in comes Otis. And he says he would have been there earlier, but he fell in with some evil companions. It's nice we get two Otis episodes right in a row.
I agree.
Yeah.
That's because the other one was the previous, the Prisoner of Love was so easy to shoot.
Yeah.
They just probably banged him out in an afternoon. One of those dirty adult movies.
I don't think that's what it was. I think I don't even know if they shot these back to back. I think it was great that they got this episode.
All right.
So he goes to look at Barney's hand and is trying to tell him what to do. And Barney plays, and Andy puts down his cards and says gin. And Otis keeps saying, "Don't mind if I do."
Don't mind if I do.
And they go to put Otis to bed, and apparently he sees a pink elephant when he goes to sleep. And so he's talking to the pink elephant, and he asks him to wake him up at 8:00 in the morning, even though it is Saturday.
So I had always heard, from my parents, the pink elephant kind of joke around alcoholism. But I never had seen it kind of externally in the cultures of the canon of society. And so this is my first foray into that.
Is that a thing? Did they say alcoholics really see pink elephants?
Yeah, they're seeing pink elephants. I don't know where it's from or what it was, or yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So Andy agrees to stay the night with Otis, and Otis asks for a drink of water, and Andy brings him one, and then he'd ask Andy to tell him a bedtime story, and Andy sits down and starts telling him Jack the Beanstalk, which is just great.
One thing I wondered about this. Are there toilets in the Mayberry jail cells?
I assume you just let yourself out and you go to the bathroom when you need to go.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. All right.
Probably not the best setup for housing prisoners that the state police bring in.
Yeah, correct. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So the next morning, Barney comes in and Andy tells him he had to read him another fairy tale. And it's almost 8:00. And Barney goes to wake him up to teach him a lesson to not ask to be woken up at a certain time because he thinks Otis was just being ridiculous. And he wakes him up, and they are shocked that Otis flies out of bed. And turns out he's been working nice to save up to buy something he had his heart set on, but he won't tell him what it is.
I don't know either.
You can guess from the title
that it was going to be I thought it was going to be an electric prod that they would use for the pink elephant in the circus. Is that what you thought? The hot rod?
You are a pleasure to work with, Christopher.
And to you as well, my dear.
And I don't believe you for 1 second.
Yeah, it's a car.
Yeah. So later, Andy and Barney are still trying to figure out what it is, and they're stumped. And they hear a honk outside, and they go out, and it turns out it's Otis's car. And they're stunned as he takes it over to show it to Gomer. And Barney says it's really bad because we've got a plain old town drunk. Now we've got a mechanized one. He says they're living in a disaster area as we go to commercial.
I'd like to see the Centown line come back here.
It's funny because in watching this, it is just so funny because you're like, I have to imagine if it's 1964 and Mayberry's got the risk of one drunk driver, they're doing pretty good.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. But, that's what makes Mayberry so charming.
It is, isn't it?
Thank you for taking that cue. After the break, Barney is drawing on the floor with chalk. He says he's not going to stand by while the town gets creamed off the map. And it turns out he's going to make Otis take a driver's test with toy cars. This is going to go very well.
It's going to be cute. It's going to be funny.
Yeah. So Otis comes in. They make fun of him. And Barney says, don't get facetious.
That's a good way to say the word.
Yeah, it's a good way. And then Otis does.
He's been reading again.
Yeah, he has been reading, yes. Otis does not take this test seriously and keeps ramming Barney's car and making boom sounds.
This is so funny. I love this part.
This is so funny. And then Barney is so mad, and Andy thinks the whole thing's hilarious, and Otis leaves. And Andy tells Barney to watch Otis if it'll make him feel better, and Barney says, I'll do it, and I'll blend right in. And so later, Otis goes outside, and Barney is hiding in the bushes. And there is a bike blocking his way, and Otis asks Barney to move it. And Barney's just kind of like, okay. And then Barney calls Andy at home and he's telling him about he's monitoring Otis. And he says Otis is over at Charlie Varney's. And Barney thinks he's getting drunk because it sounds like people get drunk at Charlie Varney's. And Andy asks Barney to come pick him up. So they go over to Charlie's, and Otis comes out drunk and passes out on his car. And Andy comes up with an idea to make Otis not want to drive again. What did you think he was going to do?
So I had a couple of thoughts. I thought they were going to put him in the driver's seat and push him into something, put him in kind of a scary situation, or simulate that he was going really fast on the highway. So maybe they're there and they're revving the engine and screaming in the back, and he freaks out. That's kind of what I thought it would be. But then I thought that's entrapment too. And then they'd give him a DUI and take away his license.
I didn't think they'd do entrapment. I thought they might do something where they drive the car home. They drive the car to the jail. Otis wakes up in the jail and has no idea how he got there. And
the old regret.
And then the whole regret thing. But that's a little too heavy-handed and after-school special for probably the Andy Griffith show.
That is more after-school special. But kind of what they did was pretty after-school special, too. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. So what they end up doing is they're standing over a sleeping Otis. They dump water on him, and Otis wakes up to see Andy and Barney lamenting the death of Otis, who has drowned. And this not only does it have an after school special feel, it also has a Christmas Carol, It's a Wonderful Life type feel to it. It totally
does. I was what, Ben the mean landlord is in the back.
Yeah. And then this is hilarious because they're all overacting, all three of them. And Andy gets out, Barney cries, Otis cries, and they get out his guitar. Andy gets out his guitar and starts singing. They start playing and singing "The Vacant Chair," a song about family members mourning a soldier who died in the Civil War. And Otis cries even harder and lays down. And then they run in and dump water on him, and he thinks he had a bad dream. He says he's going to stop driving, but it turns out they didn't need to worry about that because he'd already sold his car to Charlie Varney before he started drinking. So
he bought the car and sold it in the same day?
I thought he had it for a week.
I guess, maybe. I don't know. But why are we so excited about it, Odie?
Oh, that's a good point. I mean, maybe he was just happy to get to drive it around a little bit, but then he really got to Charlie Varney's. He was like, I'd rather just drink.
Yeah. All right. I could see it.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Otis Campbell's Uber rating. What do you think? Uber score. What do you think it is?
Well, I don't think he throws up.
I don't think he throws up.
So I think he's just kind of funny and chatty. I think his Uber rating would be pretty good. I saw a stand-up last weekend who was talking about how when Uber was first out, it was so wonderful because it was like you're being welcomed into someone's home. And they're like, can here's some water? Can I charge your phone? All these things. And then the pivot point was, and then we started throwing up and things got worse. And now it's just terrible.
I don't know if it's terrible. It's just, I mean, it's still a great way to get around. But it was like everybody, it didn't matter what their car was or the experience was, we're going to make this nice. And then it all became the black cars were the only ones who started doing that after a while. And people don't throw up in black Ubers.
No.
Well, good for Otis. Got rid of the car. Everybody's happy. Otis asks Andy to tell him a story, and Andy is more than happy to do Jack and the Beanstalk, and we go to commercial.
It's cute.
It's cute. And in the epilogue, Andy and Barney are laughing about the whole thing. Then Barney gets all sentimental about how much they care for Otis and how much they'd miss him if he was gone. Barney starts to cry, and Andy ushers him into the back room so he can have a good cry, and we go to commercial or close the show.
I like it.
I do too. How many whistles would you give this one?
I'm kind of like a low 7.
That's kind of, I was either thinking 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think the car acting out scene is new and that's all fun. The rest of it's a little tried, but it's a good formula. It works.
It does work. It's definitely a step up from last week.
Yeah, I agree.
I guess I'll go 7.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
Well, it's good to see your face.
I think it's good to see your face, too. It's good to see our faces together on one screen.
Our beautiful faces.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sit here and just wait until you say something awkward.
We'll do this all day, baby.
All right. We'll stop with this for the sake of our listeners. Thanks for listening. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. And if you think about it, subscribe. Next week, we'll do the song Festers. Until then, Christopher, Jen.
I'll have one. Is that the line?
Don't mind if I do.
Don't mind if I do.
But thanks for playing.